in the world ranking of gold producers. Gold remains its main mineral export, and the industrial action, including an auto industry strike already underway, will inflict more damage on the economy. Bheki Sibiya, the CEO of the Chamber of Mines, joins me in studio, sharing the perspective from business and its initiatives to break that deadlock. But before we go into that discussion, the National Union of Mine Workers walked out of wage talks with the Chamber of Mines yesterday and is planning on holding a strike ballot. It told CNBC Power Lunch today that it will march to the Chamber of Mines offices over the weekend. The platinum sector has also made news, with Amplat saying that it will go ahead with its restructuring plans. Let's take a quick look at some remarks by NUM Secretary General Frans Baleni.
Firstly, we had agreed, as per the task team chaired by the DMR, where does this number come from of a forced retrenchment? So that's the first thing, that question must be answered. Secondly, there is a compliance issue in terms of PDMRA, where they must inform a MIGDET, which is a forum where stakeholders are sitting if you're going to be laying off a particular percentage of the workforce. So that notice has not been received. We have not been called in any meeting to discuss that, because the notice did not go through because there was going to be zero forced retrenchment.
Bheki, you hear the comments for yourself there. But if one takes into consideration that we've had 6 weeks of negotiations with zero progress, if I may put it in that way, is business and the Chamber of Mines in particular doing enough to break this deadlock?
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Even though I was informed I'm going to be talking about the mining lekgotla, and that's what I'm prepared for, it has been doing enough. We need to be understanding that the mining industry in general, gold and platinum in particular, are in a very difficult situation. Somewhere above 50% of each of the commodities companies are either breaking even or making losses. And because of that, therefore, the situation is very tight. Negotiations are a give and take. And in my understanding and my recollection, the management has made an offer, has made some moves, and the unions have done the same thing. We are aware that there is a deadlock, and there are appropriate deadlock breaking mechanisms which are in place. It is my conviction that management and labor are going to comply with those deadlock breaking mechanisms.
Of course, Bheki, we will get to the mining lekgotla as one of the strategic responses that we're seeing to bring stability to the specific sector. But before we go there, we know that the deadline is Saturday, and you've been saying that there are appropriate mechanisms to break those deadlocks. Should Saturday arrive and we're still in deadlock, which one of these appropriate mechanisms should we expect to be deployed, and what would the labor industry look like in South Africa come Monday morning?
I would not know. I am aware that there is going to be a march by the National Union of Mine Workers to the chamber on Saturday. And we have indicated that we are going to welcome them, and we are going to take into consideration the demands that they place. Those demands, though, need to be discussed at the negotiating table as opposed to at the rally. And so for us, we would be courteous enough to receive that. However, both parties, it is my conviction as well, they are looking at their respective positions and saying, should industrial action be taken, what are the consequences? The unfortunate issue about industrial action, it hurts both the company and the employees. Nobody gets out of it unscathed. For us, though, as well, we are going to be making an emphasis to say the mining industry is struggling, and the investors are hesitant as to whether they need to come to South Africa. Further industrial action is going to cause marginal mines to be loss-making and probably to close. And therefore, strangely, the very thing that they are trying to avoid of layoffs and retrenchments may be an unavoidable because of strikes if they happen and they are protracted. I am hoping that logic and reason is going to prevail, both from the part of the negotiators and in terms of management negotiators and labor negotiators. I need to indicate that the structure is such that I'm not part of those negotiations. Right. I am really in the periphery part of looking at the mandate, whether it makes sense.
Of course, the contentious point is always, where is the point of reason where you've got two parties coming from the extreme ends of the spectrum? But if we jump forward to next week, where we're seeing the mining lekgotla is going to be taking off, talk us through what it is that you would consider as a successful lekgotla. What do you want to get out of this meeting?
The successful lekgotla, among others, mining lekgotla, is the debate, strategic debate and dialogue amongst the government, the unions, and here I would like to be saying National Union of Mine Workers, AMCU, Solidarity, WASA, because those are the dominant unions, management and the communities. But also for us, we need to bridge what we look at as a trust deficit. Those four parties generally don't trust one another. And therefore, sometimes when they share the information they share, they don't really believe because they don't trust one another. So we're looking at bridging that. We're going to be having international speakers who are going to be speaking to us about how we improve our competitiveness and growing the economy and therefore creating employment. We're going to be having people who are part of the rating agencies who are going to be helping us and say, what do they look at the rating? We have a good representation from the communities who are going to be saying, from the mining industry, what is it that we expect? And of course the government in terms of policy setting.
But Becky, it will be argued that it seems as if there's been negotiations for quite some time now, and a lot of talking has been taking place. And from where I sit, it seems that the situation has gotten to, it's almost a flammable extent. Do you believe that at this particular point in time, talks are still the strongest response that can be levied against this instability that we see in the markets?
What I don't know is that if we don't talk to one another, what do we do? If we look at how this country's democracy was formed, we were actually in a crisis far much more than we are now. We were able to push one another into a crisis. When we realized that we were on the edge of the precipice, we pulled back. Because of the trust deficit, people push one another until they really realize that we're on the edge, and therefore we're going to push one another. For us positioning the mining lekgotla, it is to say, let's have dialogue away from the wage negotiations, away from the MPRDA, away from the taxation issue, whether it's carbon tax or whatever, away from those. Let's have cool heads and warm hearts and say we are all patriotically South Africans. How do we work as Team South Africa to make sure that mining industry, the minerals, which are the treasure trove and the best resources other than human beings, are benefiting as many people as possible.
Of course, Becky, we will make a point of getting in touch with you at the end of that mining lekgotla to test whether the indicators that you've indicated would be your success factors have indeed been met. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, that was Becky Sibiya, CEO of the Chamber of Mines. We're going to take a short break now.